Hi everyone, in this video, we're gonna create an instant search application, movies application, using React and Typesense. So this is the application I'm gonna be creating by the end of this video, and this is all happening using Typesense instant search. So what I mean by this is actually you will be able to search a huge database or a huge collection of movies, almost like 10,000 movies on a database in just a glance in less than a few milliseconds. And if you're curious, in here we got this movies, we got like more like a 500 pages on this, and we can search all of those for a movie in just like less than a milliseconds. If you take a look on that, on how that basically, for example, we do Avengers. There you go. So Avengers, I don't know how to spell that, but there you go. It's so instantaneous. It's super easy to do it. And it's so fast. Curious if we get that. Maybe you want to do Spider-Man. Yeah, you can find Spider-Man. There you go. It's pretty simple, pretty fast. With filters, maybe like adventure, you can do that. Maybe family, romance, those kind of stuff. You can find all of those. And of course, the pagination still works, and you can definitely find what you're looking for in this particular matter. So it all works really well. It's pretty simple, and we can all do this. We can do like the integration using React and Typesense to create these full projects. And by the way, these projects, you're gonna find the link description below, so you can find it on my GitHub page or GitHub link. So make sure to go ahead and grab the repo there, maybe leave a star, or why not, and maybe you can fix some issues on a new PR or something like this. That would be really good, and looking forward for your collaboration, all of you. So today's video has been sponsored by Aviyel. So Aviyel is a community-driven monetization platform for open source projects. So if you are an open source maintainer or a developer, or even running your own business, or just like knowing someone who's running a business that needs this kind of open source software, Aviyel is a really good place. So you can basically it allows you to connect maintainers with developers and businesses, and you can just get rid of all the problems that face open source creation or maintaining open source projects basically. So you can build strong communities around this open source projects. You can completely get rid of financial sustainability, so you can completely be independent when it comes to financial stuff for your open source projects. Or you basically showcase the open source projects to bigger companies that maybe are interested into this kind of idea, so you can take it to the next level. It just it really works really well with connecting all this kind of stuff. So you can know more about those on the website, and you can go ahead and reach all of those. You can see there's already tons of projects are being working in here, like Typesense, like Hopscotch, as we spoke about it last time. So definitely go and give it a shot. Go to aviyel.com, and you can know more about that later on in there. The other one is Typesense. So Typesense in here is actually what we're going to be working on with today. So the whole topic is going to be about today is actually Typesense. So we're going to use Typesense with React and JavaScript, and of course, and Node.js as well. So we're going to use Typescript to index and store large collection of movies into the Typesense database, and later on we can using a fast search to quickly and instantaneously search into the database and quickly find responses among 10,000 list of movies on the database. So this is what Typesense is. It's pretty much, if you're familiar with Elasticsearch or milliseconds or Algolia, this is what Typesense is. So Typesense is provided to be on both the Typesense cloud or as a standalone open source projects, which we're going to be using today. So the Typesense open source projects in here is pretty good, and what Typesense basically provides is so many features, plus it's super fast. And what I personally like about this is when I've used this for a couple of times is basically Typesense provides you with this simple API that you can use. And plus I find it super familiar since I'm a Mongo database or a MongoDB developer. I find this super attractive and super easy to use as this one, since it uses the same familiar API like collections and those kind of stuff. So it works really well with that. And if you're familiar with that, you can find this super easy. So it has integration with a bunch of stuff like JavaScript, PHP, React, Vue.js, Angular, so many other stuff. You can even do Gatsby, deploy to Firebase, I don't know, doc search in here for your developer documentations, or even WordPress. It's available pretty much everywhere for that, and you can of course use it everywhere. If you want to like know more about like a comparison between like Typesense, Algolia, Elasticsearch, and milliseconds, Typesense basically has this really good page of comparing all of those, and basically there's so many stuff that in favor of Typesense, of why would you use Typesense instead of the others. So definitely go and check it out to know more about, and like you can of course see the features in here, and the most one is actually built on C++, so it's blazingly fast. It has sorting, it has fast pasting and filtering, grouping. It has like different API keys like structures or scoped API keys more particularly, so many stuff. So definitely you can't tell more about it till you try it. So without further ado guys, you can go ahead and follow this video along to create the full projects of these movies using react.js and Typesense. So without the guys, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's go ahead and get started, and the first thing we want to do is actually create and scaffold a project to basically start working with. So I already created projects in here using create react app, but of course you can basically use any boilerplate or any CLI to set up the project that you want to use. You simply want to set up a React project. That's it. And since we all love create react app or CRI, well, we're going to be using this. So to do that, quickly go ahead and open up a terminal like I did in here, and you can just do npx create react up, and you put the project's name in here. For example, you can do like, you know, react Typesense or something, and click enter, and this will create you a project. It will install the dependencies, it will set up everything for you. So after this finishes, all you need to do is go ahead, like open up the projects in VS Code like I did in here, and you're basically good to go. All right, so we're good in a good part in here. So let's go ahead and install the dependencies we're going to be needing throughout the whole project. Of course, since we're going to be using TypeScript or Typesense, yes, we're going to be needing Typesense first as a dependency. So yarn at Typesense, and we're going to be doing, there's a couple of stuff that we're going to be adding as well. So there's Typesense, and there's like the Typesense adapter and most of the stuff. So I'm going to copy this one here. That will be like the Typesense adapter. This one is going to allow us like Instantsearch. It's going to allow us to use the Instantsearch UI and adapt this, or basically plug this into the Typesense, because Instantsearch is made by Algolia, but Typesense has this like ported into it using this adapter, so you can basically use it. So we're using this adapter, and we're also going to be using some of stuff like style components to install, like just set up some CSS stuff and everything, so we can customize everything. And we're gonna also need the .env, so we can just configure it however we want. You can have like some environment variables that goes into it, and you can, you know, put some configuration into this. We're gonna need like the Instantsearch .css, and this will allow us to basically, there's actually a ready-made CSS with a good styling of the search box and the UI elements we're going to be using. So yeah, I'm going to install this. I'm going to use it. I don't want to create this from scratch. And yeah, I really want to use this standardized thing from Algolia. So a good part in there. And yeah, so pretty much all of those. And the last part is actually the actual Instantsearch stuff, which is the React Instantsearch -DOM. And this basically allows us to pretty much like do like integration between Instantsearch and React, and actually this is going to give us the components that we can render and everything, so we can use. So this is the main part where we can like use all of those and stuff like that. So yeah, we're in the good part. So make sure to do all of that. Go ahead and click enter. Make sure to install all of these, and we are good to go. All right, awesome. So you can go ahead and get started now. Like I already created this folder in here called script, and inside of it you can find the data. So this data, we're going to be using this to basically populate and everything. And this is like the popular movies with genres. So this is a really huge list of popular movies and everything. This particular list has, I don't know, I don't remember, I think it has 10,000 movies put in here. Yeah, probably that's, and VS Code can even redo that. But the point in here, actually this one has a couple of stuff, like a couple of properties that we're going to be using throughout this. So like the popularity, there is the release date, the title, the video, the genres, there's the backdrop in here we're going to be using, or the poster path, which is mostly what we're going to be using, is like to display the image of that particular one. So there's tons of stuff in here. We're going to be using this. So this data is what we're going to be using to populate our Typesense index. So for this, we first need to start our Typesense server. And there's actually two ways to start the Typesense server. There is the old programmatic way where you can install this and like start it off and provide a configuration using like code. Or there's the second preferred way, which is the most stable and guaranteed to work way, which is using the Docker image and run the Docker container that is going to basically bind, and you give it like a volume that binds into where you store the data, and that's it. And that's what basically we're going to be using in this particular video. So in this case, let's go ahead and create a new script, and I create this folder script because I'm going to have in a couple of scripts in here that is going to be like allowing us to like either index data or start the Docker container. You can basically put that inside of like the package.json and run the npm command every single time you want to do this, but it's not really that perfect to do it. So I would rather run a script and be able to execute this throughout the Node.js and control the variables and everything, rather than just running this long command it's not really trivial. So I want to explain everything in detail. So let's go ahead and do this in this particular matter, okay? So I'm going to create a new file, and this file I'm going to name this like a start Typesense server. So start Typesense server.js. All right. So this one, what it's going to do, there's actually a couple of stuff, as I said before, we're going to be doing this. So like it's going to just like basically run the Docker command. But before starting any of that, we need a configuration file or a .env file that's going to provide us with the variables, and it tells everything about like how we're running and what is we're running and everything, and like what are the variables, like the API key we're going to be using for Typesense, like the host, the ports, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this one real quick. I'm going to do .env, and this one in here, I'm going to have a couple stuff on it. So I already got some stuff in here. I'm going to explain those real quick. So for this, we got the Typesense host. What is the host is going to be running on, which is localhost, the ports, and this host is basically the server host where it's going to be running. And since we're not like deploying this in the cloud or something, we're just going to be running this locally. Well, basically you're going to need to like have this like, you know, at the local host level. This is the default ports where Typesense should run. So it's 8101. For the default port, there's the Typesense protocol with the HTTP. So there's actually a couple of other protocols, but the default or the most common one and the perfectly working one is actually the HTTP protocol. So you can just go ahead and follow that protocol. And there's actually this Typesense admin API key and the search only API key. So both of these are different, even though you see like the same values, but they are completely different. You can actually, this admin API key is basically which allows you to index data and remove data from the actual Typesense database, and or like the index itself. It's not really a database, but it's going to allow you to basically manage the Typesense server and do everything what an admin can do. But on the other hand, this Typesense search only API key is going to allow you to only search and that's it. Just search for data and filter data, and that's it. You can't delete data or add a new data or stuff like that. So this kind of prevents any accidental like leakage of the API key or something. And you can actually, you can leak it, the search only API key, you can basically leak it on the UI, and you can just hard code it there, and you don't even have to worry about it, because this is a search only and can be used for search only, and you need to care about that, because this will not allow kind of like, you know, admin access or deletes or basically any kind of, you know, critical management of that source. Okay, and what I did in here is actually, since create react app doesn't allow any variables to go inside of the application and be accessed, it completely ignores them. So you have to prepend react app in here, otherwise they won't work. So what I did, just copy paste those and added like react app, so I can access them inside of the UI later on whenever I want to use it. Simple, right? Okay, pretty good. And one other thing is actually throughout the API keys in here, of course, I really recommend going and changing those, because those are just testing. In fact, I just copy paste those. Those actually are the defaults. I'm just going to stick with those just for testing purposes, since it's just like a tutorial. But for production or any of that sort work, well, you definitely need to just go ahead and like change those API keys to something more secure, something more long or something like that, if you get what I'm saying. So if we jump back into the start Typesense server, let's go ahead and use the execute command from the child process of Node.js to basically do that. So I'm gonna, real quick, I'm not gonna go into details because this is not like about child process library or basically how Node.js works or how spawning child process works, nothing of that sort. Just running the Docker command, this is all what we want. Okay, and also make sure to go ahead and do the require.env so you can read the .env file and do .config. Remember, we already installed the .env library just to do basically that particular job. All right, now I'll need to go ahead and grab the API key. So I need to do like say, what is the API key? And I can access process.env, then I can do whatever API key we put in here. So which is, it's gonna be Typesense admin API key. So admin API key, all right? So that's what we basically need for this. We also maybe need like a port. What is the port that's gonna run? And by default, said before, it runs on 8180. So you always wanna just like keep it the default port because, you know, it gets easier to know which app is running on which port, basically. So this is basically what it is. Now let's go ahead and have the command. I already have the command in here. I'm gonna just like walk you through the command and see what is actually going on the actual command. So here we're actually using just Docker run. We are using detach, so we can run this, you know, just like detached, not interactive. So we port in here, we just find whatever port we specify, so we can actually expose this port in our machine. But by default, Typesense inside of that is going to export we're basically listing on 8101, as I said before. Now, the most important part in here is actually the volumes. So we are binding a volume, and what I mean by a volume is actually a way to store the data of Typesense, which by default inside of the container itself, and as we all know, container is basically just like an operating system running. So what's going to happen is actually Typesense stores the data inside of like a data folder. It's called /data inside of the container itself. So we want to expose and link. So if you're familiar with symlinks, this is basically what it's going to do. So it's going to link this data folder into a folder we specify in our machine so we can keep the data consistent or like we make sure the data is persistent and we always keep the data. So if the Docker container basically gets removed or stopped or something, we're just going to keep the data in a safe place. So that's what we're doing in here. And doing this v volume is actually you give it like where you want to store. I'm using this like process working directory. This is just a command and I'm actually escaping those because I'm using the backtrack in here so I can include variables. So this particular one, just like this is just an escape. Those both two backslashes are just escape buttons just to escape the backtracks in here so they won't get, you know, mixed up with the main ones. But this actually, we tell it like we want the process working directory, then we want like Typesense server data, which is going to be put inside of the project root in here, just alongside the yarn look and the readme file and everything. So it's going to put this folder in here and it's going to bind it with the data folder. Simple enough. And of course, we tell it which image we want to run for the Docker container. Basically, want to get the Typesense version 0.22 RCU6. And the reason I chose this image because I found like an example like using this and like some other images maybe like having issues, but not most of them, but at some points there would be some issues because like for the RCU versions. So what you would suggest actually just using this version because I tested this one and it works really well. And actually, if you go to the Docker container registry, you're gonna find like what is the most standard version that you can use, and it's pretty stable and everything. So you can go ahead and get started with it. Using the 0.22, it's pretty good. Here is the data directory. I'm telling it that you want to use this data directory, which is I'm binding in here. The API key, you tell it which API key you're basically using, which is this one. We're passing it through, and the list import. I want to listen to 8180. So those are just like arguments we're passing to the actual Typesense image in here. Those are actually specific to the Typesense image, and we're enabling course in here so we don't have any course issues as we go through. Okay, pretty simple. So that's basically the command. Let's go and execute the actual commands. I'm gonna just like do execute, run the command. I'm gonna have a couple stuff in here like the error, the std out, and the std error. Now I'm gonna check if there's any errors. Obviously, I'm gonna just go ahead and do like console.error, and I can just go and do like Typesense server is running. Okay, this should be outside, right? And this shouldn't be an error. This just log. So console log error running server or something, and I'm just gonna print out this error, okay? And also I'm gonna check out if std out or std error do this. If std out, we basically need to just go ahead and do like server output and error running server as well, just in case of just those, you know, those are actually what's going to be returned from the Docker if any errors happens along the way. But anything other than that, we're good to go. Just going to get this one running, and we basically are good to go. So I want to just also double check if not error and not std error. Make sure to do this one. Okay. So we are in the right spot here. Okay, pretty good. So we got our file in here, and we can just go ahead and like put the file in here, and it's gonna start on the server. So let's go ahead and do this real quick. I'm gonna put this out of like the pack.json. I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna create a new script, and for this one, I'm gonna do like start Typesense server. Okay, and this one is gonna run node. I'm gonna go to script, and I'm gonna go to start Typesense server.js. All right, pretty good. Now let's go ahead and use yarn to basically do start Typesense server. So just running this one in here, and I think we are in the right spot. Okay, we got the server output, which means basically this is one is basically running, and we got the Typesense server is running. So if you do docker ps, I'm gonna find Typesense is running really well. So we are actually in the good spot, and we can actually basically start working with this. And of course, the port are bound and everything. And if you take a look on the projects in here, you're gonna find this folder created for you, which is the data folder that is gonna store everything. It's gonna have this particular structure that you're gonna basically see whenever you just like open up the folder first. But yeah, so this one looks really, really well. This is where this data and the states and everything, the snapshots and everything is gonna be stored for your data. So yeah, if you want persistent data, make sure you do not delete this one whenever you have indexed any data, because that's a very important folder for you. Okay, awesome. Now, the next step we want is actually to populate the data or index the data inside of the Typesense server. So since we got the server running, now we got a bunch of data, which is of course the popular movies with genres, and this is the data that we want to populate inside of the Typesense server. So later on the UI, we can basically go in and query that Typesense server, and we can basically do an instant search. And the search is going to be so fast. But we first need to go ahead and index the data, and Typesense, of course, it's going to take care of the low-level stuff and all the complicated aspects of indexing the data inside of the particular, you know, Typesense server, the database. But all you need to worry about is actually how to index the data using the Typesense API or the Typesense clients, which can allow us to, you know, read the data from whatever file we got. In our case, we got the JSON file in here, and of course just put it inside of the running server we just run using Docker. So to do that, I'm going to create a new script, and as I said before, scripts is going to make your life way much more easier. So I'm going to do this, for example, populate Typesense, where's that? So index. Okay, let's name this index. Good. Now first and foremost, always I'm going to use the .env because that's where our environment variables are going to be stored. Okay, and do the config in here. Sweet. So we got the .env in here. Next, I want to go ahead and import the Typesense itself. So I'm going to do require Typesense, and here we got the Typesense. Pretty sweet. Now let's go ahead and actually do a self-executing function that is basically it's going to run whenever we run the script in here, and it's going to be asynchronous. The reason I'm just going to do this a self-executing function because I want to have an asynchronous or be able to use async await, because if I don't like have a function, I can't run async await on directly on the module in here if you're familiar with how JavaScript or how modules are getting executed. So I'm going to just do module export. I'm going to export a self-executing function, so I'm going to mark this as an asynchronous function, and this one is going to be like self-executing, so I'm going to just like wrap it up and here self-execute it. Okay, pretty good. So this one is going to be async, and this one will be an error function. Pretty good. So this is basically the function we're going to be using in here, and this is where we want to start, like how to do basically like read the data and do the collections and like manage the whole TypeScript or Typesense server and basically index the actual data into it, like the movies. So the first thing we need to do in here is actually to create the configuration, or basically provide the configuration to the Typesense client so we can connect to the server, and basically we can start, managing like indexing data, retrieving data from the database, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so first I need to go in and do like this configuration. So I'm going to do Typesense config, and I'm going to create this configuration right now. So first there's the nodes property in here. So the nodes property, what it does is actually you can have multiple nodes for a particular like server. So like a client basically can connect to multiple nodes, and nodes are basically just servers. So you can have multiple Typesense servers. For example, you split your data, or you're actually working with multiple Typesense servers. So this nodes is actually an array that holds the configuration for each server that you want to connect into and you want the client to access. So for us, we only got one, so that's what we're going to be doing in here. So we got, like, for example, host. We're going to have the host in here, the port, the Typesense port, and last but not least, the protocol is actually the Typesense protocol. And I'm using here actually Copilot, so it's actually helping me typing things out real quickly, so we don't waste like valuable time on this kind of simple stuff. And here we also need to provide the API key. So for the API key, we're going to provide the Typesense API key, and just like throughout the process environments and everything. But this one should be the Typesense admin API key. So just to double check that, we got this. Where is the API key? So we got the Typesense admin API key. So we need to access using the API key or the admin API key, but not the search API key, because this client is basically going to like have admin access. It's going to allow it to basically do pretty much whatever he wants, like managing the data, accessing the data, deleting the data, and this kind of stuff. So we can go ahead and later on just use this configuration to create the client. So I'm going to do Typesense equals, and I'm going to do new Typesense client. Since we already imported Typesense from the top right here, so we got the Typesense. I need to this should be uppercase, so we know that this is kind of like a type instead of an actual instance. And I need to do client in here, and the client, of course, just passing in the Typesense config, and this should do the job for us. So it's just actually going to do the configuration. It's going to connect to the server. It's going to provide the API key and everything that we want to use. Sweet. Now we got the Typesense, and we are basically good to jump to the next step. Now the next step is very important, which is actually providing the schema that is going to have like our data indexed into the actual Typesense database. So for this, the schema is very, very important. So you can check out how Typescan basically handles data, or what is the actual like syntax of creating schemas. But most importantly, all of those, or how it works, it's just basically how you put programming. So just like, it's pretty basic, and it has pretty advanced stuff, but they are still super simple to deal with and super easy to work with. So for a schema, is actually you tell it like how your data is going to be like stored on what are the types of the data. If we take a look on the movies, I'm going to see a couple stuff in here. So for our schema, we got, for example, we got, for example, genres, we got title, we got the vote average, which is the rating of our movie. For example, we got the release date, if you want to have that, popularity, like how popular this movie is among people. And we got like the original title, which is, most of the time same as the title. We got like the ID, maybe those kind of stuff. Now for the schema, you only want to put the fields that you want to index. And what I mean by a fields that you want to index, only the fields that you want the users to be able to search on. So you don't want to, for example, to include like the, let's say, I don't know, like the video equals false. This is not really needed, because you don't need to do that. You only need like the stuff that you want to be indexed and search for. But also, if you want stuff that can be like indexed and you want later on to fetch them, for example, let's say we want this poster path, the image, like we want it like for every single movie we look for, we want to have the poster image or the image of that particular movie we're looking for, so we can display it and show it on the UI, right? So most importantly, this is what we wanted to do. So we can just go and do like the poster path, but this one, it will not be searched for, obviously. So we're not gonna like do index false or something, so it will not be searched for. It's not gonna be used as a search index, but still it's gonna be stored in the database and can be fetched every single time the user search, for example, for like Venom. So Venom is gonna like give him this particular response with the poster path and everything. So you are in the right track. Okay, pretty sweet. Now let's go back and actually have our schema. So I'm gonna do schema and I'm gonna create our schema in here. It's gonna be an object. So if you're familiar with NoSQL databases like MongoDB, especially MongoDB, Typesense is heavily inspired by this. Like if you're familiar with the Mongo's ORM, like how it works and how it like, you know, the overall API and the functions and how you can retrieve data and collections, it basically works the same way. And Typesense has this particular one. It's basically like a NoSQL database, just like you can theoretically think about it like this way. Of course, it's a little bit more advanced than that, but you can think about it like this, so you can visualize this out of your head and you can understand how the data flows in and out and how it's all being structured together. So the schema in here, first you need to give it a name, and the name in here, for example, when I do like movies, so the name is going to be like the collection name that's going to collect, or basically it's going to put together and store all the movies data, or which going to be called documents, and it's going to be storing them inside of like the movies database. Or you can name this as a database or a table. So that's what movies are. Like here, for example, first we want to have like the number of documents is going to be 0. So always when creating the schema, we want to make sure like the number of documents are going to be 0. So we can just start from scratch. You can discard this. You can remove it. So if you don't want to like remove the documents, but since we're going to have this like from scratch and starting off, so we want to have this as 0. Okay, now next I'm going to have fields, which is going to be an array. Now fields is going to be an array of objects of every single field we want to index and put in the database, of course, as I said before. Now first I'm going to start with name, which is going to be a title. I'm going to do like, what is the type of this? It's going to be a string, and I'm going to do facet. So facet, it just tells you if this is something that is like has a relation with the actual topic or not, something like, you know, it just like a side relation of this. For example, you can take this, a movie, what are the facet of movies? For example, like something, the rating, maybe the popularity, maybe like the average views of the movie, the release date, those kind of stuff are facet. But the title is not an actual facet. Title is actually a main query to search for. Like it's a main kind of like aspects of like what a movie is. So it's like something that tells you what a movie is. It's one of the most important stuff, or the characteristics, or basically fields of a movie. So a facet, no, it's not going to be a facet, because we're going to later on query the data depending on the title itself. All right, sweet. Now next, I want to move on and actually want to like do, for example, the overview. And if you take a look on the data, the overview is basically a description of what the movie is. Like for example, Venom. So this is the description of it. I want to have this one here, do type, which is a string as well. And is it a facet? No, because later on we're going to be searching with this, like with the overview. So I don't want to include this as a facet. All right. Good. The next one in here, maybe you want to include the release date. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But let's go ahead and do the genres, because they are the first most important parts. Now the genre is actually the genres of basically the actual movie, like the science fiction, action, adventure, and those kind of stuff. So those are a little bit, you know, kind of complicated just to go ahead and index them inside of the Typesense database. So we can just go ahead and do this, because here it's an array and they always have 3, but sometimes they have 2 and sometimes they have 1. So, but the maximum they have 3. They just made sure that you have it this way. So this array actually has a maximum length of 3. So for this particular action, what we want to do is actually just go ahead and like index this array. So for example, genres, we got the type of this is actually going to be a string, an array string. So you can have all the genres in there. And is it a facet? Yes, it is a facet, because something that we can use later on to search for, and it's a characteristic of a movie. So that's why you want to do it in here. Next is actually you want to have like the genres. So here we got the genres. Those are actually an array, but we also want to store them to be able to like let the user filter and search for particular ones. Like for example, he wants to only get the action movies. He can actually use a filter on the UI later on, or he can basically do something like search for action, and he can grab him the genres of action or comedy or adventure, something like that. So to be able to do that, we need to actually store each level of the array on a specific field, on its own field. For example, when I store like, for example, the first like option in here, like science affection or the first item of the array on its own field, and the second one its own field, and the third one its own field, and so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and do this in here. So we do this like generates, and we do like Aviyel. Like you can name this whatever, but I really like this one. I found it from the the main startup, like how, or basically startup projects of Typesense. So this is a pretty good one to follow. So I can just go in and do it. So this level 0, which means the first item on the array, is going to be a string, and it's going to be a facet. Yes, it is going to be a facet because we will be able to search on it later on. It's a characteristic, so we can you can go in and use. And this one is an array because this is the level 1. And let's go in and copy those. So we're going to have a couple of more levels. Sorry about that. So we got 1 and 2. Since we got only 3 items, but those 2 are not required, so they can be optional. So we can do optional, true, optional, true. So for example, when we try to index, like read the data from the JSON in here and try to put it in the database, so if any of those are not found, it's gonna just like ignore them because we marked those as optional. Okay, sweet. So that's pretty simple. We got here this true. We got the generators in here going on pretty good. Sweet. Now let's move into the next one. We got a couple of more like left. For example, we want to do like name. We want to do release date. We want to just like go in and store this one, so later on we can go in and access it. So you can do type string, and this is a facet. Okay. The other one, maybe what else we have got? Maybe you want to like do the original language, or maybe the popularity. So type of this is going to be a float, and is it a facet? Yes, it is a facet. Okay. Good. So we got the popularity. Maybe we got like the votes. So if he wants to like, just, it's not going to be searchable really. You can do this kind of searchable, but mostly what you want to do is basically just like show him the rating of that. So we want to like put in the database anyway, because later on we're going to be using this. Okay, so I'm going to copy those. I don't want to just go and do this every single time. So it's going to be average or vote average. All right, so this one will be a float as well. Yep, it's going to be a facet as well. And last but not least, we got the image, which is the poster image, which is later on going to be using it to like showcase the poster of the actual movie. For this case, this will be a string, but this one is clearly only includes the final path, but we need the base URL. So likely for me, I got the base URL, and since I scraped this data from the movie database, or the tmdb.org, so you need to actually give them full credits. So it's not my data or my JSON in here. This has been brought from the tmdb using their public API. And that's it. So just like full credits or full disclosure. So this is the base image path. I want to go ahead and link it to that later on once we go ahead and use it. Sweet. So that's basically what we need to do first. And this is what we have. The last thing we want to just go in and do is actually the property of like default. I think it's default sorting field. Right? So what is the default field? That is, the data is going to be sorted automatically if not specified. Of course, you can specify whatever, but the default one, I want to do popularity. So I want to get the most popular one, then less popular, the less popular, and it goes on and on. Okay, that's basically what I would like to do for now. I don't know if this one is kind of like not fixing those, and yeah, I guess we're in the right spot in here. So this is going pretty good. We got the schema and everything. Now let's go ahead and actually read the movies from the database and see how that works, or basically the movies from the JSON file. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go in and require data and popular movies generators.json. Okay, and just like this, using the require is going to read us this JSON file, and it's going to get us into the movies in here. So that's pretty sweet for us. It's pretty easy to go in and do this. And yeah, this one will be just a JSON, so we can later on use it and work with it. Okay, good. So we basically now we can go ahead and actually like call or using the Typesense client in here to create the schema and import the movies. But just right before that, there's one step. It's not really like you need to do it, but it's very optional, but it's very good to do it. It's actually to check if there is already any kind of data inside of the movie collection. So if any movies already exist in the Typesense database, If so, do you really want to delete it or something? So I can do real quick, just a quick script in here. So I'm going to do a try catch in here just to catch any errors that comes along. For this, I'm going to just console log this. Now the try in here, I'm going to try to read this data. Okay, so I'm going to do collection, and I'm going to do the Typesense dot, I'm going to do like how to read it. As I said before, if you're familiar with this, the API should be looking pretty familiar with like how Mongo's or MongoDB, like how the API just works on that. Okay, when I do collection in here, when I read a particular collection of this, so I'm going to do collections, get me movies, and I'm going to do retrieve. So this will retrieve me all the movies if the movies collection does actually exist or not. Okay, now I'm gonna do just like console log. If it doesn't find that, it's just gonna go to the catch immediately. So it's just gonna go ahead and like jump off this one. It's gonna go to the catch, and you're gonna like put an error in there or something. But if you find something, I'm gonna do console log found existing collection of movies. Okay, and I'm just gonna console log the collection in here, but I'm just gonna do json.stringify. I'm gonna just like do collection in here. I'm just gonna do null, and with true in here, just like I want to have two spaces, just you know, to put some space in between the JSON data. Pretty simple, right? Now we're good to go in here, but what you can also do is actually check if you want to drop the collection and you want to like re-index everything, because this is a script that we want to run every single time that we want to re-index or index a new data and completely drop the old data. So you can just go ahead and do it right here. So what I can do, just an if quick statement. So do collection dot length, or like I can do, go ahead and do like fields. Okay, and I can do length. So this will get me the actual collection, or I can use something else. I can do the collection dot number of documents. Okay, so this will get me the number of documents right here, and I should have used a weight on top there. My bad. So I should have do a number of documents. So if number of documents equals, or if it doesn't equal to basically like movies dot length. So if the actual movies length, the data we read, so if anything changed or if something doesn't exist in there, so what we want to do is actually go ahead and drop the data from this. Okay, so it has different number of documents in here of data, deleting collection, and I can just go ahead and do collection, for example, dot delete. Pretty simple, and this will go ahead and forcefully go ahead and delete that. But I can, yeah, we can go in and use the Typesense thing. So you can do like collection, movies, and delete. So you can use it this way, or this particular API is much better. Just go ahead and delete this one. So this will delist everything. Will be pretty good, and we'll move along. If anything happens along the way, if any errors or something, it's just going to be like, you know, catching up in here. It's going to continue its way through. Okay, pretty simple. That's pretty sweet. We're good to go in here. So so sweet. Now I'm gonna do a console log in here. I'm gonna do, for example, creating schema, because here we're gonna be creating the actual schema. I'm gonna do console log as well. So I'm gonna console log the actual schema. I'm gonna be like, you know, creating in here. So just doing that real quickly just to see what we're actually doing. So I can do await Typesense dot collections and create, and we just pass it the schema what we want to create, and that's it. Okay, now another one, I'm going to do console log, for example, and here I'm going to do populating collection, and here where the data is going to be added. So I'm going to be importing the data from the JSON, and I'm going to be putting it into there. But before jumping ship into that, we want to actually prepare the data we have already got. So if you take a look on the JSON, we don't have that perfect data in here. So we need to basically, like, for example, I don't want to insert all of this data inside of the Typesense database. So maybe I need to go ahead and remove some couple stuff like the video, the vote count in here, the video, maybe the you know, I don't know, the original title, original language. I don't get rid of those that I don't want them to, or they don't exist on the schema anyway, because we don't have everything on the schema. So I don't want this to go to like Typesense, because Typesense will basically like fail on that. It will tell you that the schema doesn't exist for this particular field, so you can't actually insert it. So I need to go ahead and like remove those because we don't necessarily need them. And of course, I need to prepare something for the genres, of the movies, just to make them get added into the database perfectly without any issues. So I want to do movies.forEach. async in here for the movies. Okay, and I go for each on the movies itself in here. So for this case in here, I want to go and like have movie and like do everything that we want to like prepare in here for this. First, I want to prepare the image. So I'm going to do movie.image, and the actual image, what it equals is actually the base image path plus the movie poster path. Okay, and the base image path is this is what it got in here. So we can just add it, and later on, whenever we need it, we can go in and use it. Okay, I want to delete a couple of properties we don't need them. So movie, for example, poster path, I don't need that. Movie dot, I don't know, let me just go ahead and copy those real quick. Movie dot, I don't need the original title either. Video, movie dot, let me see, the backdrop path. We also got, I think, the vote count. We don't care about that either. And we got the movie ID. Yeah, we need to get rid of that because Typesense is going to create its own ID. And the movie.adults because we don't need that either. So we think we're good part. The last thing is actually the generaries. So movie dot, where is that? How is that types? Okay. Good. All right. So we got all of those. It's into the right place in here to do it. It's pretty good. It's going sweet. So we got those deleted as well in here from that particular place. Pretty good. Now let's go ahead and prepare the generators to be able to add it, because if you just like add them as an array, Typesense won't be able to basically like go ahead and index them into the database, or basically properly index them for a search. So later on when you try to look for something like action or adventure for any genre of movie, you won't be properly finding it unless you basically prepare the data for this, like how it should be going on. So we can do movie.genres for each. So another for each inside of this, and it's going to be a genre here, and yeah, we're going to be accessing to this. So what we want to do in here is actually you want to access, for example, a movie, and we say the genre number 1, for example. So this genre is like level whatever the index we've got. So we need to grab the index from here. So wherever the index we've got in here, so it starts from like 0, 1, 2, since we only got like 3 genres at maximum. Of course, they can be 1 or 2, but the point is at maximum we got 3, so we can access those and we can just like modify the data. So for each one in here, what we want to do is actually an array, and every single time we add into it. For example, for the first one we have like so it basically starts. So if you take a look on how Venom is, actually first we got science fiction. So science fiction is greater than all the others, so it just like goes from left to right. So this, for example, you can, if you're familiar with like how weights works, so for example this should have like 4, this should have 2, and this should have 1. So this is like have a priority of 4 like above both of the others, and this one has a priority of 2 above this one, and it goes on and on. So this is what we want to do, and we can visualize it using like the / arrow in here, or basically the you know, the greater than arrow, and that's how you want to do it. So for this one, we're going to do like movie.genres. I'm going to do slice. So we first start from 0 and we get whatever the index we are on. So for example, index is 0, so we got only the first one, then the second one, then the third one. So the third array will have first, second, and third, so all of them. So you can see that later on once we have it, but for now we just want to have it this way. So basically how the data is going to be visualized is going to be something like this. For example, the first, you're only going to have like science fiction inside of it. So if you take a look on this, we're only gonna have like science fiction. The second array is gonna have something like science fiction, is gonna have action, but it's gonna be like this. And the third array is going to be something like, we got like science fiction, action, and adventure. So something like that. So that's basically how it would look like inside of the database. So it would know which one has the first priority, which one has the second priority, which one has the third priority. So we would look for different genres depending on the priority. Okay, pretty good. So let's see how can we do that, for example, right now. So let's see how can we go ahead and work on those. Like import the data and actually index it. So this is the most important part of all of those, is actually indexing the data. So I'm going to do try catch. If any error is going to happen, I'm going to console log this. console error that if anything. Now I can go and do await Typesense, and actually I can use the collection. So I can do collections, and I can go ahead and do like whatever you specify, whatever collection in here, and you choose the documents, then you can add into it. So for example, collections, we want to do the movies collection. When I access documents, okay, and I want to import into the document. So you tell it what is you want to import, and of course it supports JSON-L, which is pretty good format in here, but as well it works with JSON because I tested it a couple of times and it works really well. So it's better just to provide the JSON-L format because you have this line terminator and all this kind of stuff, but still works with regular JSONs as well, and the data would be just like flowing normally without any issues. Okay, so that would be pretty good. And here you can have like return data. So you can just go ahead and like console log it into this. So you can say return data, you just go in and do like the return data into there, and that is all of it. So that's all you can see that. So that's pretty good. Yeah, so we can go ahead and run the script right now and see how that works. So we got all the script tied up together in here. Now let's go in and see and make sure the server is running just by running this again. Docker PS, the server is indeed running. Now let's go ahead and run this to see how it works. So let me go to the back.json. I'm gonna add this one, so I'm gonna quickly go ahead and copy this one just real quick. I'm gonna do index data, or just run the indexer. That would be a better name. I'm gonna do populate Typesense, or maybe in here like do populate. Okay, that would be better. So populate Typesense, where is that script? So populate Typesense index. Okay, good. Now let's do yarn. I'm gonna do populate and see what that is gonna give us. So we already got a couple of errors. I don't know why. So connection has been refused for some reason. So connection refused 127.0.0.1. So yeah, for some reason we got this refused. Any info why this one has been refused? Anything at all? And so we got an issue in here. I mistyped the actual port. It's 8108. Okay, no, it's not 80, so it should match this one. And yeah, that should be pretty good. So you need to just go ahead and stop the server, and so we can stop, Docker PS and Docker stop, whatever the name of that. Copy paste in. That should basically stop us the actual running server, and we can go in and run it back again. So yarn start Typesense server. This should start the server on a different port. Okay, good. The other thing in here I noticed, maybe we haven't, yeah, we have basically, so this will be movies, and it should be movie instead of movies. So we need to put movie instead there. And this one, we should access movie.genres, and like we access the other one. Yeah, basically we're in the right spot. Okay, so I think we're good to go in here. Let's go and run again the command. So yarn populate to populate the data. So you can just go ahead and do this one. So we got the schema put into together and everything. It's populating the data, and there you go. So this is the output we got. We got success of almost like 900 items, almost 10,000 items are all populated and put into the database. So that is pretty good news. There are some items that failed. That's why this error is basically popping out to me. We don't really need to care about all the items, of course, but of course for production stuff you need to make sure all the items are indexed. So something wrong with the actual data what we've got. So yeah, you probably need to look into that. Maybe you can look at it later on, but for now we're good to go. We got our data indexed in the database, and we are basically good to go. So after getting this response, getting everything, we got the script in here, we are basically ready to jump into building the UI and actually retrieving the data and showing it using Instantsearch. All right, pretty good. Now let's go ahead and start and put the UI together. But first, before getting started, a UI is basically gonna need to connect to the Typesense server and basically do queries. A Typesense server is regularly as any other standard or regular server that it runs on HTTP. There's other protocols that you can communicate with the server, of course, but you can just go ahead and do HTTP, which we're going to be using in here. And the client is just going to send plain through HTTP requests. It's going to receive HTTP response, and it's going to just do the search. That's basically how it's going to work between a client and the actual Typesense server. So before doing any of the UI or displaying or rendering or any of that, we need to first connect to the server. We need to provide the configuration as we did before and all this kind of stuff. So let's go into the SRC, and I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to name this like Typesense adapter.js. Okay, so this one's going to be the adapter is going to connect to the client or the server, sorry, and this will play the role of the actual client. Okay, and I'm not going to be actually typing this again because I already put the configuration in there. So I'm just going to copy paste this configuration real quick, and that's what I'm going to do in here. But what I'm going to import is actually the Typesense Instantsearch adapter from the Typesense Instantsearch adapter. So this adapter, this library basically is going to allow us to basically link between the Instantsearch library. If you're not familiar with the Instantsearch library, it's basically just a library that provides you with a ready-made UI components that you can use, and they can just like do everything for you behind the scenes. They can do the request, they can just like fetch data, they can do searches, they can do pagination, and this library is actually created by like Algoria, which is pretty good. It's an open source, of course. It's available for React, JavaScript, and all this kind of stuff. But we're going to be using it with this adapter in here. It's going to allow us to do this exactly with Typesense, and it's going to work really, really well for us. So we don't need to go in and create the UI elements from scratch, but we're going to be just using those, and we're going to like display and do the searches. Sweet. So let's go ahead and do this in here. I'm going to go ahead and do the adapter and actually initialize this. I'm going to export const. So I'm going to do Typesense adapter. I'm going to do like create a new instance of that. So it's going to be the Typesense Instantsearch adapter. And here we need to provide it with the configuration. First, you need to provide with the server, which is our configuration on top in here, which is the Typesense server config, which is basically the same thing as did before. We just access the React up. Search only API key, and this has to be the search only API key. You can't use the admin API key because that would be super dangerous for you. So search only, just to do searches, not admin or management or any of that. And the rest of the stuff. The number of retries in here is basically going to tell you how many times you need to retry the connection if it fails once, and the connection timeout seconds. That's it. Okay. Pretty good. So this is the server. I need to provide an additional search parameters, and this object in here is going to tell it like what are the search parameters that by default are going to be applied to every search query is made to this Typesense server. Okay, so there are a couple of stuff in here, and there are very required stuff that you need to use in here. So there's the query by. Now the query by is pretty much required to be used. Now the query by here, you tell it like what type of fields that you want to query for every single search request. So for example, search word, let's say I want to search for the Avengers or the Venom movie. So what type of fields I need to hit on the server? Like what type of fields I want to say to the Typesense server, oh, you Typesense server, you need to go ahead and look me out for this particular data or this particular query, which is Venom, and you want me to look it for what fields exactly, right? So the fields are, for example, I want the title, I want the overview, which is, the description or whatever, and I want the genres. All right. So those are the things I want. There's also query by weight, and the query by weight are going to determine the priority of each particular query by or each field. For example, the title, I want the title to be the highest priority. For example, I want the title to have 4. So the title will be looked at first, like 4 times greater than the others or 2 times greater than the others. The overview, I want this to 2. The genres, I want this to be 1. So this just weights. And of course, you can change this as however you want, depending on how you want the search result to be. So this will have a huge impact if you change it, the weights. So make sure to do it the right way and perfectly align that as however you want it to be. Good. Now, the other one is the number of typos, like how many typos you want the query to have. And if you want a result if these typos happen. I want like 3 typos because we're dealing with movies and movie names sometimes can be hard. So you want the typos in here. And also I want the typo tokens threshold. And this one is like how many times you need to retry. So I want only 1 for the threshold. All of those are available in the documentation of Typesense, so I really recommend just going and checking out those on the documentation itself, just to know more about how this kind of like, library works, how the adapter works, the parameters works, and all this kind of stuff in much more details. Sweet, so we got those connected, everything. Now let's go ahead and export the actual search client. So I'm gonna do search clients, and the search client is actually we're going to be using to connect and do the searches. So Typesense adapter, we access the search client, and that's pretty much it. Sweet. Now we're actually in the right spot in here. We're good to go. Now let's go ahead and get started with this one. All right. Now the first one we got React Typesense movies or Instantsearch in here. Just a simple blank page. Let's go ahead and have, for example, one like an H4. I like to search movies. And here I want to use the search box, which is, already imported and created for us using the React Instantsearch DOM, the package we created before. So this is a UI element already created for us in here. If I click enter, save, this one is still running. Go ahead and refresh. It gets state, because I guess I totally forgot about this one. You need to provide like the instant search first before you can do any of those. So you need to go in and do like import the instant search from I can grab that. So instant search, okay. I need to import that and make sure this one is a root that covers all your elements as children, otherwise they won't work for you. And this one looks like or works as Redux, if you're familiar with Redux. So this is kind of like the provider, and here you need to provide it with the search client, which I'm gonna go ahead and import from the search client or from this Typesense adapter we've just like connected and created. All right, so this is what we need to do in there. This is the search box. Now if I save, this would work perfectly. So just waiting for this, go in and refresh that. So we got the API key, ensure that the API key is set. For some reason, the API key is not set because we've added the env file just like right after running the server or the development server. So you need to go in and exit the server. You need to go in and rerun the server. So you yarn start again. And after the server is actually started, the new env file is going to be loaded into memory, or is going to be loaded into the React env files, and it's going to work fine, okay? So you're going to be refreshing this, the server is running, and there you go. Now we got the search bar in here. It's clear to see it does nothing for now, but we got the search bar. Sweet. So that looks absolutely awesome. We got the search bar, we got everything. That's pretty good. Now when searching on Typesense or pretty much using Instantsearch library, so whenever you type something in here, you need, of course, it's going to do the request for you, it's going to grab the response, but we don't have anything to display that. And that's what's called the search hits, because how Typesense basically works, it just like uses the hits, kind of like API. It provides you or sends you back the response as hits. So this response is actually going to be like hits of different responses of whatever the query you provided. And of course, those are going to be movies. So you're going to be like having those as hits. And we need to like have our custom components that can render this particular hit. For example, you can put the poster image on top. Just right beneath it will be like the movie title, maybe. Just right beneath it will be like the overview of the description of the movie, the rating, and so on and so forth. So to do that, I'm going to create a new component. I'm going to name this components folder. I'm going to go to I'm going to do movies hits or something like that. And maybe create another one like movie hit, just for a single hit to render. And this is actually a list of movies to render. So here I'm going to have an index.jsx. Okay, I'm going to import React from that, and I'm gonna export a function which is gonna be movie hit. Okay, it's gonna have props and everything. We don't need to care about. So I'm gonna copy paste some style component stuff because I'm not gonna go into details about how I created those. They're just like regular CSS stuff. So I just want you to show you basically how everything works. Of course, you can play with those however you want. Those are just CSS stuff, as I said before. So I'm going to import style components to make sure those are working, and we are actually in the right part of all of those. Okay, so this is the movie hit. So this is what's get rendered on the page at first. So for the actual hits in here, and like how it basically works, we got a couple stuff to basically first get into it. So there is some stuff that we need to take care of. For example, the props in here, it first takes a props and it takes the heads of the props. For example, I need to extract that from it, or let's go and do it the other way around, just like from here. So this is the actual hit, and a hit is just like an object that has the data that we want to do, like the fields, the different fields that match the query. For example, the title, the poster, the image path, maybe the rating of the movie, and all this kind of stuff. So let's go in and return those and render those. And so we need to go in and render those right here. So for the rendering, there's a couple stuff in here. So I want to use the hit container, okay, just to store everything inside of that. Maybe you want to like put the movie poster in here. So the movie poster can be like the hits, but the image in here is the movie poster, and maybe like do hit the title, which is the title of the movie. Maybe there will be like a couple of other stuff. For example, the title, want to render the title. Let's just say I want to render those, just simply those for now, just to see how that works. And later on, we can just like expand on how this doing this stuff. Okay, so this is just a single hit. Cool. Now for the movie hits, what it does is actually it renders all the hits. Like, you know, you can imagine this as the container, but this one is just like a single movie, but this one is the containers of all movies, of all search results that have been going on there. Okay, so what we want to do in here is like another index.jsx in here. So I want to go ahead and do like the actual hits for this. All right, so I want to go and import react. Okay, and we're going to export in here. I'm going to do movies hits for this one, but I can't export that directly. But what I have to export is actually export a connected function to tell Instantsearch that we have customized our components, because Instantsearch already gives you like whatever the hits that you want to use and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes you want to customize those. So that's what I really want to do. Like I want to show you how to customize all of those. So I'm going to do connect hits. Okay. And the connect hits in here is basically just going to give you all of those. So I'm going to give movie hits. I'm going to export. This one has to be exported by default to connect hits. All right, good. Now the movie hits in here is going to take the hit as a parameter. So I can give it all the hits and make sure we go ahead and return like the hits container, which I can of course copy paste again. So where is the hit container? Yeah, there you go. So we got the hits container in here. I can import style components again. Just go ahead and use that again. So style components from the top in there. So hits container, and here I can go in and do like the map function. So whatever you're gonna have in here, I'm gonna just like render the movie hits. Okay, sorry for that. Movie hit, and maybe the key in here is actually I want to do the hit dot object ID, which is the actual ID that's going to provide by Typesense to the actual hit or to the movie. Just want to use this for like you know, using the key to provide it with React for performance issues or performance concerns. So that's all what we're trying to do in here. So yeah, that looks pretty good for now, and we simply need to pass in, last but not least, actually the hit into it, because that's what it takes as a parameter, and we're basically good to go in here. So so that's all for the movie hits, and we can export this and we can go ahead and use it later on outside of this. So if you go back to the app.jsx, just right after the search box, I can do movie or movies hits. What was that, the name? Yeah, I need to go and import that because we got this as a default import. So movies hits, and this should be a couple case because this is a component, and simply like this, Control S. So saving this, Go and refresh. Yeah, maybe we got some errors going on into the console in there. So I am not sure if anything is going wrong. But so failed type, the prop index name is marked as required. Yeah, we should provide an index name in here that I totally provide or forget about. Now the index name in here is actually what tells like what database that you want to look for, and for us, or like what database or what table that you want to look for. For us is like the movies table or the movies collection to better save for this. Now, as soon as we save that, there you go. We got the bunch of movies that we get, and those are actually like by default is going to be showed up. But if you try to search, for example, Avengers, there you go. Your instant search is basically working just by using 3 components, using an adapter, connecting it, and that's it. It just so good and so fast with Typesense in here. As you can see, it's super duper fast. Like movie called Hello, I don't know. Yeah, you can find that in here. I mean, there is tons and tons of them. They all work absolutely great, and like it's so fast to search a 10,000 list of movies with the whole information, with overviews and all those kind of stuff. For now, we got only the title and the poster image, but we can add as well on the hits as well. The other custom component that is provided by Instantsearch that you might want to use, which is the highlight components. Already being created and everything, so you can use it out of the box with any problems, or you can customize that. So for example, you can go instead of like the hit in here. So for the title, instead of it, I can go in and use the highlight. All right. Now the highlight in here, I don't need to put the title anymore. I just put the highlight there, and I can tell it, for example, which attributes I want the access. And I think the highlight is being, yeah, from there. So I can just go in and tell it like what is the attribute that you want to access. And for example, the attribute is the title, of course, inside of the hit itself, and you need to pass it the hit first. So you say, this is the hit, and this is the attribute I want to access. All right. And if I save that, so for example here, since we have no searches, it just like there's no highlight. But for example, if I do something like Venom, as you can see, this one is being italic, so it has some kind of highlight that this is what it got me. So for example, if you do like Lego, it's not being italic, so there's no highlight into it. But Venom is being highlighted, which means it is the search query that we have put, and this is the same result that it brought you. So this is what a highlight is. And of course, you can use this as a variety of different stuff like the overview or everything else. But this looks pretty good for the actual title in here. Maybe you can use this for the overview as well. So I can do hit and do overview in there. Maybe we can do, I think there is a rating on top in here created. Yeah, there is a rating. So a rating I can do average, I think it's called voting score or average votes. I don't really remember. Let me go in and see what we've got on our like schema. So it's called vote average. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's called vote average. There you go. We got this like 6.8, 5.5, 5.5, whatever. If we do like, for example, Avengers, there you go. So you got this. This is the huge overview of that Avengers. Maybe we want to look for something like stones. All right. I want to search for stones. Is it going to bring me stones? Yeah. As Chris in here, it's italic, and you only find that because it's inside of the overview, so it searches that for it. But this one, it searches for the title, so the title has priority other than the actual overview section or the description of the movie, but then it comes the actual description of the movie. So as we've put it in here, so as Chris in here, we put the priority in here. That's why it works this way. But if you change the priority, it's going to be different in here. For example, if I put this one to be 7 of the overview, as you see, it re-indexed that automatically for us. And here we get now this result first instead of like the last. So this looks really good with the API and everything. So yeah, now it indexes back again. Now the title has more priority than the other two. It looks really sweet and really good with Typesense. So everything is super fast, super easy, and the API is so good to work with, and you don't have to worry about much stuff. You just like configure it right, and you save your files, and there you go. You got your search ready, and you can be easily access everything that you want to do in a super simple and easy way. For the highlights we've seen before in here, maybe I can go ahead and add a custom highlight. I'm not going to go through details, but movie highlight. Okay, I'm going to have like an index.jsx inside of that. And for this, we got like the hit highlight in here, and we're basically going to go ahead and export this, export default. I'm gonna go ahead and completely remove that. And after connecting this, I can basically go ahead and use this highlight right now. So for the highlight, I can go back in here. Instead of using this standard highlight, I can use the customized one. So for example, movie highlight. I don't know if I can import that. Where is that? There you go. So I can put that here, put that there. So save, and so we got connect highlight. Yeah, I need to go and import this real quick as well, and we need to go and import React as well. And probably this should be good. There you go. So as clear as the highlight works. Now it just like goes and underlines this and makes it bold. And as clear as the whatever we get in here, for example, stones inside of that is actually highlighted. There's a bunch of stuff. All right, so there's stones in here is being highlighted. So it all works really well and just works really good with the highlight. Like for Venom as well, yeah, you get that Venom in here. Maybe violence, you get that. Super, you get that super here, like superhero or whatever. It works really well with the highlights and everything. So that looks really good. And also if we want to, for example, like filter by like the genre, for example, we want only action movies or adventure movie or something. Yeah, Instantsearch with Typesense really provides really good way to just like do that in a quick way. So I can go and do like use the refinement list, like components in here. And this one actually you give it like whatever the attribute I want to do, which should be like an array attributes, which is the genres which you have already got. So saving this is going to give us all the genres clears in here, and whenever you click on it, it just like filters that as however we want it to be for this. So also I want to use the actual theme from this. So I want to do import. So it's called Instantsearch CSS, then themes. Then where is that? I think it's called, I don't know, I totally forgot about how that theme is actually spelled. It's called Satellite. Okay, so Satellite CSS. So that theme is basically, it's a really good space satellite theme. So it's providing all of that. And as you can see, the filters still real work. So just like you click on it and it's going to filter everything by depending on how you want it to be. For example, you only want the, like the drama movies. There you go. You got Finch, you got a bunch of stuff in there. The action movies, there you go. You got the action movies in here. It all works really good. So yeah, perfectly well with how the refinement list works with the genres in here. And as well, if you take a look on the bottom in here, you only get this list of movies, but the search is endless, absolutely. And you can control this and you can have or introduce pagination. So you can do pagination and you can allow basically users to explore older pages. Curiously now, pagination, clicking on this is going to move us to the next pages and next pages and next pages. And yeah, it works really well. And there is, as I said before, this is a huge data set. It's like 10,000 movies. It has more than like 500 pages scraped from the movie database or the TMDB. And it's just like really fast on how it goes, and it basically like indexes the search and it just gets the query, and it's super fast. Like I don't know, Venom, seriously, it's super fast. It's almost instantaneous. Like as soon as you type, you're gonna get the results. And plus, what I like more about Typesense is actually the API, and the API and both of the libraries it provides is really simple and easy just to access. And plus, their API and how to work with it, like it provides this friendly Mongo database or Mongo's API, where we're all familiar with like collections and documents and how to retrieve them and how to import them or create or delete. They are pretty simple, and it provides you with the easy way to do that in just like the simplest way possible. So I like doing all of those. They are pretty good with like how it provides it with Typesense in here. So that's pretty sweet on how to do all of those. But I really like on how doing all the movies. Of course, you get all the whole list in here, how to see and everything. So for Venom, maybe we don't need any of that. But this is pretty sweet. I like Typesense. I like how that works. So if you really enjoyed this video tutorial, guys, make sure to push that thumbs up. Let me know what you like more, and let me know like what other videos you like, so I can just do other topics and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you liked the project we created. You're gonna find all the link description below to access this on my GitHub repository. And without further ado, guys, hope you guys all enjoyed. See you all hopefully in the next ones.